welcome back.
Well, welcome back, dear listeners. We're back to another Riff Radio show, and it's been quite a distance. Welcome back, welcome back. It's Riff Radio 8999, where the unknown becomes known and the unheard is finally heard. I'm your host, Fernando, and with me today, once again, is the enigmatic visitor who's been stirring up quite a conversation across the cosmos. Blinko, how are you doing, my friend?
GM, I'm doing well, my friend. Doing well indeed. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with this portal, but I'm staying clear of it. You know what we saw from last week.
Yeah.
Heck with that noise, man. Holy cow.
Is it still there?
It's still there. Nothing's come out of it. I've stayed away, like we talked about, last time we spoke, but I haven't slept well. Imagine just kind of hanging out, looking out your backyard, and then all of a sudden you see like this thing kind of take form. I've never seen it before. Certainly, I don't know, man. It doesn't look friendly.
Well, don't go poking around in it. Otherwise, you're gonna be dead. And today we're already gonna talk about a lot of undead stuff.
There's a nice play with words.
Oh, dear Lord. It's gonna be a very fun show, episode,
Yeah, no,
vibe
I'm
sessions,
psyched.
right?
I'm psyched. I'm
You're
psyched.
you're
Talk to
psyched.
Psych. How we doing, sir?
Hey guys.
How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you. A long time listener, first time caller, but I guess it's reversed here. Been a big fan for a while.
Thanks. Yeah. I've been meaning to catch up with you guys for a while. I know that yeah, I've just been a fan of what you've been doing, basically.
Thanks, man. Now, what inspired the creation of Deadfellaz, or what was the initial concept about?
The initial concept was just basically filling a need for what we saw we wanted in the space, really. Like I've always really loved horror. Betty's always really loved horror. Like anime, Japanese mascot design, games, like basically everything, every little thing that we kind of loved. We were like, wow, let's jam it all together, and that was basically what ended up as Deadfellaz.
Oh, that's
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the things that really kind of caught my eye initially early on was the uh, the look. It was very distinctive. You definitely knew you were looking at something, and the introduction of the rotten and the fresh, and how that kind of evolved the traits, and then secret traits on top of it. I think that was something that really excited me. That you just didn't see initially in some of that early 2021 movement of trait creation.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. It's always so difficult to like declare that you're the first of everything, because I feel like someone always kind of like uncovers some hidden gem that did something before you. So yeah, but like I think that we were the first that did that kind of thing, and it kind of came from because I was like a PFP collector, like like for the art and a bunch of different reasons. Like I would pursue particular ones, and I really liked finding ones like especially within like the early kind of like 21, 22 period of like PFP projects. A lot of it was really messy, so I would always try and find like clean combos that felt just like more well put together. So that's kind of like where the concept came from, that someone could kind of like rock something from the Deadfellaz collection, and like the fresh grade would be kind of like the more presentable version of, if you're gonna like have it on your LinkedIn or something like that. And then the more gory they got, like the more rare they got, and then if you're really into that side of things, like you could pursue the rarest ones, the more gory ones.
Yeah, I made it a point to when I found my DGen fella with my blue tracksuit. my wife wears a top bun for her hairstyle, and
Yeah.
I was on the hunt to get like the exact what I wanted, and I paid out the nose for it, but it couldn't be more perfect. And I love how the two go together. I even put it on a shirt for Earth Day when we were cleaning up with Maggie from the Book of Reverie. And so, and even Halloween, me and my partner, we threw on some green
Yeah.
paint and made it submitted for one of the contests at one point. So, yeah, definitely a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we've been able to have a lot of fun with the visual aspect, and then a lot of people kind of finding themselves within the traits, which was definitely, part of the guide. So like Betty and I have always worked really closely together. I'm more so the erratic kind of ADHD one, and she's like more level-headed and will bring things back down sometimes. But like in terms of like the trait array and street culture and kind of just like people being able to, well, not street culture, but streetwear culture, kind of like in terms of the traits and things like that, people being able to find themselves in there. That was really important, and it definitely worked out.
Well, being one with a whole lot of hair, finding a nice bald fellow was for me
Oh,
with that track thing.
oh, Blinko, I think your voice kind of got alienated, kind of.
We are leaving back.
Have you hit space effect or something?
I think so. He's going through a tunnel. Oh, let me see. He's back into as a listener. Let me just pull him back up. Here we go. Let's try it again. Oh. Go ahead.
Still on the other side.
Yeah.
Still on the other side of the portal.
You're back as co-host, bro. Go for it.
I'm back, but I don't know if this is
Oh, wow. All right. So let's see if you can do a reset on your end, Blinko. See if you. I think that portal might be having some interference with your communication, bro.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's what it sounds like.
Right.
Committing to the part.
Yes, but I am a bit curious. Like, how did your background and experience kind of lead you to co-found Deadfellaz?
So I ran full stack interactive agencies for quite a long time, overseas, like mostly in like New York and DC for a while, and right before kind of like diving fully into Web3 and NFTs, we were primarily doing a lot of like work in doing like small interactive like games, web-based games, things like that for the Olympics and ESPN and like the Golf Masters, things like that.
Oh, that's sweet. It almost felt.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It almost feels like a natural first next step as you were, explaining the whole process. But go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no. So it basically came because I actually tweeted about COVID the other day. Like, our largest client became the Olympics with Tokyo coming up, and then Tokyo got cancelled. So kind of like, wow, like we've got a lot of time on our hands. What do we do? And we're trapped inside. Like, well, I've been part of an artist collective called Deathcore for a long time. A lot of different art directors and things like that like we joined when we were like 16, 17. And everyone's still a part of it. All good mates. They were starting to jump into the Ethereum side, like on like Ethereum-based markets for artwork, and I don't think it was NFTs at that time. It was more so like people actually selling artwork just for ETH. And yeah, just started dabbling, kind of fell in love with it because it was just a really, really cool movement at that time. And yeah, just kind of like fell in love with it and then jumped in and like immediately saw, the, I guess like the potential for it to kind of like uplift artists and then also just the obvious kind of like benefits for like for gaming and kind of like persistent like digital identity, safety around like anonymity, like all sorts of different
Yeah,
things.
that's awesome. Bringing all these sweet cherry bits together to create something something that the space actually craved for, I think. But I mean, what do you think that kind of sets Deadfellaz apart from the other NFT, beside being undead?
Um, so like, oh man, what sets us apart? So I would say like we're probably the broadest in terms of like our scope of like kind of like applicable locations that we're ever going to appear. Like we've always had really strong legs across the like media and partnerships, artwork collaborations. Just kind of like the core concept of Deadfellaz being kind of like an alternate version of themselves that you've like never known has also really lent itself to us being able to collaborate with like the NFL and things like that, like turning players into Deadfellaz just through the act of turning them into like an undead Deadfellaz version of themselves, right? So I
Yeah,
think that that one aspect of Deadfellaz and like it just being kind of intrinsic to the collection and the lore and kind of like like everything that goes with kind of like the overall history of undead as a theme um, has made a lot of different things easier for us to do and will do in the future. Like with the streamers, and then like say you have a streamer that doesn't actually use a dead fella, but like we can do a representation of them themselves, so they don't lose their identity that is what their brand is. But we can kind of cross over in a way that many brands can't. Like it's very hard to like turn a particular streamer into an animal or something like that. Like it's hard to actually cross over.
oh, definitely. I think also like one of the aspects that with Deathless really strikes quite uniqueness is also like the color palette. Like a lot of people that just push something out, but I think some of this is more like maybe a more personal opinion on this matter is the blue and the certain color of blue and green together with that kind of zombie undead kind of vibe, bringing it all together. It's recognizable throughout the whole collection, no matter how many collections have been dropped throughout the last 2 3 years. You cannot confuse it, so to say, right? Because that
Mm-hmm.
shade of blue, that shade of green, and the zombie vibe, but in a very playful way, but at the same time having, how they say, the option, I would say, to go delve into a more serious nature, but at the same time retaining that playfulness to it. It's very, how do you say, appealing on a personal level, especially if you really vibe with that kind of stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, that was always the intention. Like I grew up like just a big fan of cartoons, anime, comics, everything like that, and then that kind of developed into just a kind of an obsession with anime and like Japanese mascot design and things like that through university, and so a lot of that kind of inspired Deadfellaz and kind of just like I guess like some of the simplicities, like trying to not go too detailed with things. A big part of like kind of like the base kind of tactics that you use with like mascot design is like silhouette design. So like every trait should be able to be recognizable if you're doing um, like the best example is kind of like the what's that Pokemon screen, when you're
Yeah.
watching Pokemon and you kind of like you always know what it is.
Egg.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what you want for like different traits and things like that, just because you can actually have a recognizable character, and a lot of that like kind of you don't really know what's happening, but it just kind of speaks to your brain a bit easier too. You're able to actually define the differences between traits and find that they don't all look the same, even though that they do have these running themes.
Yeah, definitely on point. On point. There is, even something like you say, who's that Pokemon? Like this silhouette. Even if you had like this silhouette for just from a Deadfellaz, you can spot it from between like 200 collections. Yeah, that's a Deadfellaz, right? And I think that's quite hard thing to achieve. I would say it has progressively become harder. But I would say it's always been hard from the get-go. Not even from an NFT perspective, but I think from art perspective, it's quite hard to achieve. So I mean, you have definitely kind of nailed something that is very, I think, pivotal to having a personal identity in this space. So kudos on that, definitely. Let's see. Hey, Blinko, how's your connection? Doobie boop.
Well, it's good now. I think,
Brilliant.
given the fact that we've never interviewed someone that's dead before, we were certainly bound to have some problems, right? I mean, come on, right? But talking about the PFP themselves, and I think a lot of times when I'm looking at different types of collections, I'm looking for that nice, clean type of look. But I think if you take a look at the collection broadly, I think, like what you were saying with color palettes, it just has that feeling across the collection. It doesn't, whether you're looking at something that's fresh, damaged, or rotten. I think it all has that clean kind of a look, and I think a lot of it is the color palette, and it was simple, right? Like you keep it simple in a number of aspects, and I don't know. That's my perception anyhow.
Yeah, I think that it just really comes down to like a bunch of different things, because like I came up through mostly illustration, but then just had to basically deep dive into more so the design industry to actually pay my rent and things like that, and like a lot of that like really taught me just like the value of like accessibility, and a lot of that's also just in the actual like readability of particular elements of a design. And so like a big thing with PFPs, and I think that people still struggle with this, is that most of the time when you see a PFP, it's like a couple of millimeters tall, you know what I mean, like in their spaces, or someone's image inside a Discord with 100 other people in the same chat. Like you need to be able to have something that is an easily kind of like readable image at any size, and I think that we've achieved that, like just on purpose. But I think that just in general, like the entire kind of like PFP scene sometimes got a little bit sidetracked on detail. But like I can understand that if you're like art focused, but I think that in terms of if you're launching with your core utility being for the use of it as a digital identity, not being able to really tell the difference when they're small next to each other is a flaw.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How does that come into play when you're talking about the trading card game and the development there?
So the trading card game itself is like is slightly decoupled from the PFPs. For one, it's like a mobile first game. All of the gameplay is completely 3D, so the collecting and deck building experience is cards. For the familiarity with those kind of like core gameplay mechanics that everyone knows from Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering and like every other TCG in existence. There's no reason to break that familiarity just for the sake of it. But the actual gameplay is 3D, is a 3D battler, kind of like a mix between like Street Fighter and Marvel Snap, really. So the interpretation of the characters into the TCG will be quite selective. So we do have like unique characters across 3 different factions that will be part of the TCG title. And then particular community members will be able to actually have their characters translated into cards based on hitting certain thresholds, like through just like their history as a collector, their history as a player, their history as someone that might be a content creator, say someone that's in the kind of like the upper ranks as a someone that's in the upper ranks of tournaments, or someone that has the most hours, or someone that's really streaming and getting to know the community, just so that the people that we're choosing to implement IP for is intentional, and then also has a personality attached, just because a lot of the flaw flaws that we've seen across kind of like the IP implementation side of PFPs, and people trying to launch businesses and different brands and things like that around the PFP, is that you can't really just launch something and expect it to be successful or for it to have traction when there's no additional kind of personality attached to the character itself. We generally see things a lot more successful when someone kind of like has an emotional connection to the person that they like that's behind the particular Deadfella. So that's why we're going to be taking that route, and so they would be translated into a 3D character. And the way that the UI and UX of the TCG works is that the 3D character is still 3D in the 2D card. It's just kind of like I guess for a good reference, kind of like a Harry Potter painting. You know what I mean? Like it's like a snapshot of the 3D model.
Oh yeah, no, I remember when Harry Potter came out, and the scene of seeing those pictures come to life. It was that was pretty cool. So it's interesting to see where that's headed. Is that still with Unity, where that's being developed? How's that going?
So Unity, we actually ended up splitting ways with Unity in kind of like an amicable split after their pricing model shift. Because globally, they ended up letting go about 25% of their global staff and their CEO as well. So within that period, they lost the studio that we were meant to be working with. But there was a bit of a silver lining there where we were able to contract a direct relationship with a developer that we were working through Unity with anyway on some prototyping things. So it delayed us by probably about 6 months on getting the prototype really rolling. But we've ended up with a much closer relationship with our developer, almost to like an in-house level, which is the most perfect way to actually
Sweet.
develop anything.
That is great. I've been part of a number of projects, IRL, and and sometimes when you don't have that great line of communication to the devs that are doing the work, you end up with either delays, or maybe a product that you didn't necessarily, you're just doing more work in order to get it to where you wanted it, right? So I think that silver lining. It's great to hear that the development team and that you guys working kind of in sync there.
Yeah, and like we still retained our relationship with Unity, and they shifted into a different model. Like they're very much like a support role now versus kind of like a competing with developers with their own teams angle, which has been really good as well. Like they've introduced us to a lot of other cool groups, and they have a lot of kind of like people with huge knowledge bases around like what the best kind of practices are for basically anything that you're building on Unity Engine, especially like on the new builds like Unity 6 and things like that. So
I
yeah.
would imagine in some ways that it probably kind of freed you up, right? And I know, working with corporations, sometimes there's just a lot of red tape and legal and all kinds of things you got to deal with. And so being
So
able to to remove the handcuffs, right?
yeah, no, 100%. Like I think that, well, the only reason that we actually signed with them in the first place was that like we had quite a good relationship already with their studio head, Marcus, who is a Deadfellaz collector as well, and that's how we ended up getting introduced. And yeah, no, you are right. Like basically, the closer you can get to a team, like if you know every team member's name and you can speak to them individually about their different slice of the pie, especially like on a can just like on your production schedules, being able to pivot quickly, being able to check things while they're raw versus everyone always trying to package everything up neatly every fortnight for like a client review where everyone sidesteps for 2 days straight just trying to package everything up when they could have been making progress instead. Yeah, there's lots of reasons why working more direct with a team is good.
Nice. And then what about any behind the scenes stories from the development of the Deadfellaz collection? Anything that maybe you haven't shared in the past or touched on in a while?
Um, Behind the scenes on the development, I think some cool things of we've been basically working with like a few different groups around. I guess like it's not a very sexy topic, but actually like ROI and ad placement. So we found a group that actually do live ad placement through through like a game build. So we've got like this loading sequence that we've been working on, where when you're, I guess like your scout character that kind of like gets you to the battlefield, if they're say traveling through an urban environment and that's your load screen, this group can actually have ads come up on billboards throughout the city, that are like live real ad rolls. So you kind of like enrich the landscape without actually feeding an ad into the game, if that makes sense. So you can have like maybe one time you're loading up the next match and like a Fanta truck rolls past, and the time after that it will be like a Coke one. So I think there's some cool stuff there. And then like speaking of that is like kind of the way that we're presenting the storytelling around the combat itself is, like having like a commander card and a scout card. There's basically like your lowest cost card that like always comes out first, so you don't need to kind of like build your deck around needing to at least have something that can be a turn one. And yeah, that's like some cool stuff that's popped up recently. What else? It's just exciting, really. All of it's exciting. I find game mechanics incredibly interesting, so that's very hard to kind of get across on the spaces, is talking about numbers and mechanics. But that's where I really love.
Well, speaking of ads and sponsors, we're no shy of those either. I think we got to pay the bills ourselves. So Fernando, I don't know if this is a good time for us to get word on our sponsors out.
I think is a best way. Otherwise, we have to keep the light burning, right? As they say. So
Definitely.
So we'll be back after a short word of our sponsors. Hang tight.
Hey there, thrill seekers and adrenaline junkies. Are you tired of the same old boring commute? Well, buckle up, because it's time to unleash the beast with Rift Rides. From sleek sports cars to monster trucks that'll make you feel like the king of the road. We've got it all. And with our getaway guarantee, you'll always outrun the competition. So why wait? Visit Rift Rides today, where the only limit is your imagination. Rift Rides. Drive like a boss. Disclaimer. Rift Rides is not responsible for any vehicular mayhem, property damage, or encounters with law enforcement. Hey!
Right, so yeah, that was the words from our sponsor, and always listen. You have to slow down the disclaimer. They kind of like squeeze it in, but we have to kind of put it in, right?
100, man. We do not need legal coming after us. That's for sure.
But I mean, ads aside, what role do you think, like, things like partnerships and collaboration can play a role in the success of an NFT project like Deadfellaz?
So there was like two different angles for us, like when we first started looking for collaborations, and one of them was like, because so many people within the NFT space got treated like they were like not a real business, basically. Like you had to kind of like reach for legitimacy, and one way of doing that was to basically like partner with a brand who would vet you and see, are you up to snuff and worth collaborating with, and then people would see that kind of like as an indicator that you are a good bet in terms of just like being someone that they can trust to collaborate with, and that gets you in the doors with more people. And then like we ended up signing with UTA, and one of the biggest things for UTA was that they just got us into rooms that we wouldn't be able to get into because, like, especially within the 21-22 period, like, everyone's doors had just been kicked down by hundreds and hundreds of people pitching every agent, like every creative, everyone with any kind of platform that they want to do like an NFT collection for them, you know?
Yeah.
And they were just sick of that shit, basically. And we were able to kind of like cut through the noise, and brand partnerships definitely helped with that. UTA helped with that. And then another aspect was just that everything was incredibly undependable. So like I said, like I ran full stack agencies for a very long time. Like I had a Rolodex of hundreds of creatives when we first launched, and I actually only had one guy out of hundreds that was willing to work with us, just out of fear of working with an NFT project and getting like blacklisted professionally, and people thinking that they were like a criminal or greedy or like all sorts of different things that were getting kind of like thrown at any creative that worked within the industry at that time. It got pretty wild where people were just like scared, really scared from blowback, scared of their you know, people that they worked with finding out, things like that. So that was pretty wild. I sidetracked myself there.
No, but that's all right. But it's very recognizable. I remember like back in 22 was it? I went to like Art Dubai. Yeah, was it 22? Yeah, 22. And they had this little exhibition with NFT art, and I went there with a group of like traditional artists, photographers, and like painters, and some of them were even digital artists, and they were like very scared to even touch the subject. Some they even saw it as some form of insult, but that's always the case when a new medium comes on board, and you get a lot of opinions on this matter. And what you say is very resonating. Back in the days, they were just scared to even touch it, because here's the thing: as an artist, you are your brand, you are your name, and you have chiseled this carefully over the span of like over your lifetime. Some have started in their childhood, right? And now you're like, they're feeling like they're just throwing it away just for a little, as they say, cash grab, right? Or even being marked as a scammer, or even worse, right? Like that. So yeah, it's you. I mean, Deadfellaz, you, the co-founder, everybody on the team have been in the trenches from the get-go, and like, you've been kicking doors at the corporate level and getting 100 nays to get that one yay, right? So and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, is it easier now these days, or is it still like skepticism, or they're thinking like, oh, it's dead?
I think that it's just been replaced with basically like it's dead, basically. But I think that in terms of recently, the relationships that you do build, it's been a lot easier to kind of like weed out the fakes. I think that's kind of like the point that I was trying to reach before I sidetracked myself, was that like that kind of attitude actually ended up filling the space with a lot of people that weren't actually who they say they were. Like they just either didn't have the skill set that they said they had, or they hadn't like quite actually done the exact thing that they were saying that they've done before and things like that. So like a lot of the people that we like kind of like got pretty far down the track with, like testing out to try and do some things with, like ended up, you know, just like never actually shipping, say, an interactive before, never having shipped anything before.
But that's the thing,
really.
like if you if you lie at corporate level to HR to get the position, you just get replaced in 1 month time, and they'll capture the blow and they'll move on. But if you do it at, let's say, at this, I wouldn't say experimental, but this new tech level and a startup level, that could basically kill the project even before it has started. So it's very hard to weed out those kind of wannabes, I would say, right? So
yeah, and even at just like a company level, so like kind of like looping back to the collaboration angle, was that like a lot of that was just us trying to secure partnerships that could secure, say, merchandise or whatever the goods were, with like really true kind of like tried and tested like pipelines really for like fabrication and delivery and everything like that, manufacture, because like everything was just on quicksand. Like one of I guess like one of our famously bad kind of like merch drops was with a group called Nuno, that we ended up doing through Decentraland, and the release itself went exceptional. Did a really great job, and we had Giuseppe Zanotti, which is like one of the most famous Italian sneaker designers, was attached, and but they went bankrupt like 3 weeks later, and they were meant to do all the merchandise.
Ooh.
So, and that it just kind of put us in the position where like our team ended up chasing the merchandise from like China to Europe to the States, and then shipping it back to Europe and all sorts of crazy shit to like try and follow up on the pre-orders and the sales that have been put through this company that just disappeared.
Yeah.
And we just had to avoid that at all costs, because for one, it was incredibly costly, but also incredibly costly at a reputational level, because every time you partnered with someone and took a risk to try and be, you know, as Web3 as you can be, to try and like, you know, do some cool shit. Every time you did that, it was a huge risk. So we ended up kind of like, we started leaning really heavily towards just going towards kind of like the ones that had been tested, and we knew could actually deliver something.
That's nice. Yeah, but it makes sense, man. It makes sense. It's totally, man. Like, it's a leap of faith, but it's basically also at the same time, you know, you could just, you know, kill the reputation you like, you know, you chiseled so carefully with your community, together with you, because you also have a responsibility towards your own community to do the diligence from your end, and I think Deadfellaz have been doing that very carefully, and not. How do you say, after the first, I think, one or two unfortunate ones, I would say, after that, Deadfellaz really pivoted real quickly to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, and we've seen that in the future collaborations after that came in the, let's say, end of 22, beginning and 23, and up to even now, right? So it's been a learning process, but I would say Deadfellaz as a collection has made that switch and learning or whatever very quickly to make sure that the future is actually bright, right? So, but with that being said, how do you envision the future of Deadfellaz and its ecosystem, like in the next 5 years?
So within the next 5 years, like we're very heavily focused on gaming and the connection of like content to that gaming, and how that content can come out through our own networks, and how we can basically build up our own content creators, or our own like kind of like KOLs, I guess, if you will. And like how can we empower our own community become kind of like the shot callers within our own ecosystem, and as that gets bigger, you know, we get to lift them up and then bring more people in, and, you know, just kind of like grow it out that way. Like we always have ambitions when it comes to like media and art and music and all those kinds of things, but those are much longer timelines, and they're also kind of like luck based. Like you need to kind of like strike the iron when it's hot, when something comes across your desk, when there's an opportunity. And so that's not something that we can really kind of just like continually push out there into the universe and be like, hey, like we're doing this thing, when a lot of that is just like, it's a slow grind and it's not very sexy. So it's hard to like kind of keep people interested with that kind of narrative. So what we've been doing recently is, now that the TCG things are the TCG's rolling again, like we're probably about a month away from demo state, which is good now that that's all going again. We've also got our build with the Sandbox, Wall Hugger, which is like kind of like an experimental horror game, which is being transformed into co-op, and like that's basically based around the premise that like Sandbox and a lot of different metaverses don't really have that entertaining content coming out of anywhere. Like there's no real kind of like gameplay loop or hook or anything that is shareable. So we're trying to create those experiences within the Sandbox through that title, and then pursuing like how can something that's a natively built like metaverse build become its own brand. Like how can we boot that, like how can we merchandise around that, and how can we build that up and and Wallhug is like linked into the lore of the origins of Deadfellaz, so it's still like a Deadfellaz story. So we get to do some storytelling,
Nice.
and like people that are fans of the lore can find out bits and pieces, even though it's a little bit different.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was playing a little bit of Wallhugger the past couple of days and sending some clips of me playing to Fernando. And so excited to, to do a little bit better. I came to find out that my monitor, my brightness on the physical monitor itself was way down. So as I was playing, I'm like,
yeah,
man,
yeah, it's a
I need a flipping flashlight in order to not get killed here. It's like just like death after death. So we'll share that out in a bit. But one of the partnerships or collaborations that that I recall that I enjoyed quite a bit was the one from Wrangler,
yeah.
where it was like this choose your own adventure, and it evolved based upon community feedback. So just curious, how important is it to community engagements with the strategies you use and maintaining it, whether it be collaborations and partnerships or what you're doing with Wallhugger or TCG?
It's incredibly important to kind of like maintain interest and have people feeling like if they show up each week, there's going to be something new to see what's up, you know. And it's like honestly, it's a lesson that we've learned. Sorry, the hard way quite a few times. Like kind of getting a little bit too distracted with, you know, like large developments, and you're like, it'll be fine. Like we'll get an announcement out in 3 weeks time that's really massive, and it'll kind of like re-spark attention again, and that's just not really a safe bet, because a lot of the time that can get delayed, and then you've already kind of like dropped the ball in terms of just keeping the plate spinning. So yeah, it's incredibly important to just kind of like have just engagement moments. Like soon we've actually got our marketplace launching with Snag, which has XP, which is like a point system, like Horde XP. So that's like
Nice.
a system that rewards collectors. So it does have kind of like its historic elements around kind of like legacy collectors going back the last 3 years and what their behaviors have been. But it also leans into things like rewarding activity, rewarding you know, simple things like playing Fortnite with the stream team, or coming and watching like someone on Twitch, or liking a tweet, like simple things. And there's like bigger things like buying and selling, and you know, like all the fun Web3 market side things. So that can help us kind of like keep people's attention. And then also just like on the gaming side, because we're not, you know, for better or worse, like $100 million game build shooting for AAA, like we're definitely something that's a bit more scrappy. You know, it's kind of the scene that has the most potential, really. That's why you've seen AAA getting overtaken constantly by indie game developers, because they're just monolithic and very hard to actually steer. Whereas like engaging experiences and people's attention spans getting shorter, like it's just something that makes a lot of sense when it actually comes to like how you approach the development of a game. So the fact that we're building on that level means that like we can do different small trailers, do different like character introductions, do different things around like even our live ops strategy that, you know, won't be in place until post beta. But like even that approach is taking inspirations from something like from League of Legends, where they like release characters in not the same way as how you would release characters through something like Magic the Gathering, which is like a monolithic block of like new mechanics and characters and cards that it can be like quite heavy. Like it's the reason why I only play drafting when I'm playing Hearthstone, is because I just can't be fucked learning what all the new cards are. I have a lot easier time and fun time just jumping in. So yeah, like everything about our development approach is just going to be just focused on short form content, if you will. Like even on like how are we shipping game notes, how are we shipping content, how are we shipping updates to the game, how are we shipping our seasonal content, like all of it's short form. And so yeah, it should be a good approach.
So how do you balance the creative aspects of game design with the technical challenges of blockchain integration?
So it used to be a lot harder. It used to be a lot harder. Um, Things have come a long way since 21, especially in terms of just like the general kind of like artists' ability to access like quite complex on-chain interactions and things like that. In terms of like the gaming hurdles, we've got a partner on the gaming side that isn't public yet that gets us around a lot of the scaling issues. Um, yeah, like I would just say that like a lot of the things around gaming in particular was just kind of like a lot of games were building on chains and building on how can I say this another way? Where it just wasn't really a scalable solution. Like a lot of them were relying on either like a massive grant, and a lot of the time it was a gas grant that was $10 million, but like they chewed through it because it was all just basically feeding into gas for their 900 players or something like that, and ultimately that game is dead when that ends because you can't actually have any kind of profit on like a free to play model, which is very much the model that you need to aim for. Like it's very hard to just go like the indie developer like $10 a game method. The free to play model in terms of like getting people in easily, get them kind of like in and hooked and falling in love with the gameplay, and then kind of like monetizing from there is I think the most sustainable approach for us and just kind of like blockchain gaming in general. I think it became quite elitist for a long time, just people making so much money, spending so much money on gas. Like people became a bit decoupled from the reality of what most gamers and just general population want, and that's like they don't want to pay for anything really. So like if you can just deliver a good experience, and when you actually have those on-chain elements, like make them something where like there's a reason that it's called, which for me is like there's just the obvious implementations of like blockchain on a TG on a sorry, I've got a bad cough. A TCG, right? Like is that there's the interoperability on the cards and being able to have those traded between players.
I mean, people play games because they want to have fun. They're looking for something to do, and if it's not fun, they're just simply not going to do it. So I mean, and then now when we hold this IP and we have these digital assets, that there's going to be a lot more people that are interested in game development and putting their IP to use. What advice would you give aspiring game designers who want to enter the NFT space?
Oh, an aspiring game designer. So on a game design angle, you basically have to be at demo state before you can do anything. Like either on the VC side or kind of the launch side. I think that the space has been burned so many times by people that don't actually know how to create a game, that the burden of proof is incredibly high now. So you can't really do like a pre-launch without anything really there, without any team. Like you need to be a bit of a self-starter and get pretty far along. At least have kind of like a playable state ready, and then go from there. Really, like I would say that's the most valuable piece, is that like you need to have something moving and playable before doing anything else.
What is the most exciting part of your work as a game designer and director?
I think like in this particular production is just seeing Deadfellaz come to life, seeing
Nice.
a very long-standing vision come to life. Like this game in particular, around the TCG and these particular mechanics, like I've been working on just pen and paper for a long time, and then it took some additional inspirations from Marvel Snap as we went the mobile first angle. So that's really cool to see that coming to fruition. and yeah, like just kind of like seeing the IP finally come to life in 3D is really cool, and just games. I just love games, so that also helps.
What's your favorite game or top three?
Oh, my favorite game. Um, like ever. Uh, oh man. Like Majora's Mask on 64 was
Yep.
probably the one that had the biggest impact on me as a kid, and then in terms of hours, probably Counter Strike. I would say I kind of bounced around the competitive scene of Counter Strike and modding for a very long time when Steam was kind of in its heyday with Source Engine, and now play a lot of Fortnite, Fortnite with Velado, like doing some like map builds for Deadfellaz as well, and what else? I dabble in like some Hearthstone and Teamfight Tactics, League of Legends, basically anything. Like I'll honestly play anything, but yeah, that's probably me right now.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time gaming as a kid. My dad had a ColecoVision, and I remember him setting up the steering wheel so that he could play pole position on the on the coffee table. And I remember swearing up a storm, and then hearing me, I'd have to leave the room because mom didn't want me catching any of that language and regurgitating it at school or anything. But what's been your most rewarding moment in your journey with Deadfellaz so far?
Um, there's been a couple. I think that like yeah, I guess like you have your kind of like pivotal moments. I think that like in terms of most rewarding moment, I think it's just kind of like a tapestry. But I think that like shocking kind of moments is kind of like post mint with Deadfellaz, it just going from like 0 to 100 because we kind of stealth launched, to be honest. Like we were kind of like a group of like a couple hundred people in the Discord playing the survival game, which was just like a bootstrapped like ran between function on a Discord bot that I'd made for to be like a zombie survival game for allow listing. And then it just went nuts. Like we released and sold out in like under a couple of minutes, and like that moment was wild. I don't think I slept for days. So in terms of rewarding, that was like a very unique experience that I think I'll never forget. Our first really big party in New York, having that packed out and going so well in it, that was kind of like rewarding, but also impactful to like see real people there for you that are a fan of something that you've created is pretty wild. Um, there was some stuff that didn't end up happening in LA with a movie deal. That was pretty wild. That I'll talk about it a different time, but that was pretty cool. And yeah, what else? Yeah, just kind of like the big things, where you kind of like, oh shit, like this is really like a thing, because like I always worked for big brands like the Facebooks and Googles and stuff like that, but you're very much like a cog, even when you're an independent trader and doing independent things. Um, the creative freedom to just kind of like do cool shit and for people to be like, oh yeah, this is cool, I like this, is a very unique feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think stepping outside the comfort zone and taking the path less traveled. Speaking as an alien, on a planet by myself,
Yeah.
I'm certainly familiar with that. Um, any questions you have for us before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess like oh man, what are other questions? Like what have you found most enjoyable from like what you've been doing so far across these different community spaces?
I think it's getting for myself. It's getting a chance to um, look for the similarities and not the differences. Whether it's personal, professional, anything career related. I try to strip things down to its simplest form, and how do I make them repeatable. And I think just connecting with everyone and hearing some of those common those common lines of what resonates with them, doing things because they choose to do it, not necessarily being guided by what someone's telling you to do, falling in line with passion. It seems like we've brought up, everybody who we've brought up is that's the major common theme that I see is passion. Everyone's coming at it with intent to do good, and how do we just make it better? Not dwelling on the things that didn't go right. How do you evolve and pick up the pieces and grow to make it and make it better? I think that's some of the things that's been exciting to me, and connecting with various, founders, or, designers, or what have you.
Yeah, I think that I think it's super cool to kind of like be active right now, because I think that like some people, it can't really be kind of like overstated, like how much I kind of like respect the people that I talk to now that have kind of like pulled their companies through kind of like the post royalties, because like we went through it ourselves, and I think that there's a lot of intricacies that people don't realize when they weren't running a company that kind of went through that. Because a lot of people are like, well, just find revenue, you know what I mean? And like when you were a company and your revenue was the community, and you're kind of having that feedback loop, right? Like when you did cool things, and then that drove interest, and then that interest converted into royalties, and then you could just keep rolling. When that got sliced off, like everyone had a business model, and then was gone. And the thing with a business, when your business model collapses, is that you can't go rake money on a business model that makes no money. You know what I mean? So like a lot of people scrambled. Like anyone that you see that's around has been just an absolutely scrappy motherfucker and pulled their shit together, and they're here because they love it. So I think that like the fact that if you're doing interviews with people that are around now, you probably will find certain personality types, maybe, a bit of a masochist, really, at the end of the day. Like maybe you hit the dopamine and whatever else that's probably not super healthy. But yeah, I think that like I've made some really good friends in the last couple of months, just meeting like new people that there was too much noise around them for me to talk to previously. But like, yeah, really cool. Like it's cool to see.
Nice. Well, we do have a app for those that are active in participation here today, and the secret phrase is wall hugger, not to be confused with wall runner. So wall hugger is the secret phrase. So sign into your app, enter that in, and for the next 15 minutes, right, Fernando? That'll be live for people to claim.
Yep, there'll be for the next 15 minutes. They can claim it, and yeah, I think also worth mentioning, the POAP will be used for a raffle. Because I mean, we adopted three of these dead friends, but they're kind of a handful. So we thought, what better way than after this spaces to give them up as adoption for our listeners that joined in today. So hopefully that you can handle them. So claim the POAP, and there will be more information later on the raffle. It will be conducted through Tropy, so you don't need anything connecting and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you'll have a chance to win a dead friend and adopt and take care of them and be good to it as well, because they are quite of a bit
one almost bit me in the butt, I'm telling you, and I think the monkeys are a little friendlier, so maybe go and adopt those suckers, but I think these will be fine too, so
a great lover though. But this I'll be honest, I have still so many questions I would love to ask, especially delving into these topics, because a lot of the spaces, it's very, how do you say, following the hype, what's the next shiny objects. And I think one of the things we both enjoy a lot with together with Blinko is trying to get into the meat and the actual value and the content and the grind that people and the founders and the artists are putting actual into their projects, the passion, especially like you said, like Blinko. Because yeah, it's a lot of these spaces, and in any spaces, it's mostly like, all right, if I'm what's in it for me if I'm gonna join in. Is this space gonna make me dump or buy more of it, right?
Right.
And it's such a, how do you say, I would say a very negative point of view. It's not even it's not even a community kind of mindset, right? It's just a very monetized mindset. And I think this kind of show and spaces that we are trying to because we actually love to poke the founder's brain, like what makes you think, what makes you tick, what is your passion behind it, what is your experience, what has been your journey for this. I mean, the value, whatever that may be, the market decides, whoever decides, whatever. We don't really, I wouldn't say care about it, but that's a by effect of the underlying effort and passion about it, and we really love to bring that out during these talks and spaces to understand more the mind behind it and the love and the passion behind it. Because even like not only Deadfellaz, a lot of these communities, you have very lurking and silent, passionate community members that really want to understand more about the project and the meaning behind it, and not just all right, when is the next airdrop, should I sell it, should I keep it, and all that kind of I would say very negative energy that is not even of any benefit to the project, the founder, or even themselves, I would say. But I mean, let's leave that to a discussion for another show, because otherwise we won't be able to close this for today.
Yeah.
Psych, thanks for joining us. Absolute pleasure. Welcome anytime, my friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you both. I think it's really cool that you're trying to do something different too with the way that you've been approaching RiftRadio. So always respect someone that is creatively minded and puts the effort in and wants to do something different. You know, like we've got to support creators like you. So I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, have a nice day. Thank you everyone for coming and listening to me chat. So
love it, man.
Awesome, man.
Right.
Be well, everyone.
Everybody be well. All right. One last time, the po-up claim wall hugger. Claim it.
Let's
Have
go.
a nice one. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Touch some grass. It's not about. Just play the game. That's what I would say. Play the freaking game.
Play some wall hugger.
Exactly.
Touch some grass.
Exactly. And touch the grass and play some games. All right. Have a nice one, everybody. Thanks for joining in.
Cheers.
Cheers.